But I do know that during these challenging times that we're just feeling debilitated and maybe in the dark night of the soul, numb, depressed, any of these things, like it's also a beautiful time because we're able to feel so much and we're able to get so many insights. So that's when I developed this acronym breath. That is the framework I'm teaching in Overcome the Overwhelm. It's basically a book that's not about what happened, but how I handled it. Because it's not important what happened. What's important is having the tools and frameworks so that you can handle these challenging times.
Let's impact some today. I think we're gonna do a great job.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Modern Man Podcast, where we connect men in pursuit of their potential. I encourage you to embrace discomfort, cultivate community, and put wind in each other's sail with us. And of course, if you're ready to take your personal and professional growth to the next level, I'm going to need you to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for a new episode each and every single week, and share this with some like-minded men to get them on the bandwagon as well. Also, don't forget to check out the Noble Knights Mastermind group. That's where you can find the support, accountability, and mentorship you need to achieve your goals. Join us and become a part of a community of like-minded men on a mission to elevate their capacity for life. I'm excited to get some wind in our sails today. First time having a number 2 guest on the podcast, number 1 best-selling author, named to Silicon Valley's 40 under 40 list at 31 years old, serial entrepreneur turned spiritual seeker, and again, second time guest on the show, Sam Kabert on. How's it going, Sam?
What's up, Ted? Thank you so much for having me on the show. And first time, second guest. Let's go. Stoked for that. I'm doing well and fired up for this conversation.
Yeah, man, absolutely. It's great to have you. Great to have you back on for a second time, and this time, touching a little bit more on your book, but also just more on your story. And for folks that didn't get to see you as a guest the first time around, I'd love to give you the stage and the platform really quick to introduce yourself again, talk a little bit about your journey, where you're from, how you got here, and then we could jump into your new book and the conversation today, man. So the stage is yours.
For sure. Thank you. Yeah. So I did the whole Silicon Valley thing. I'm from the area and built up my business over a 10-year period, give or take. Started it in college that culminated into building a 7-figure business while working less than 4 hours a day. Very similar to you. People would ask me, like, how are you able to do so much? And I'd say VAs. They'd be like, what's a VA? And I'm like, a virtual assistant. So back in 2017, I became known as like the VA guy because I was doing so many different things. And then I got named to Silicon Valley's 40 under 40 list. And that was also the year that numbing depression hit me. The plant medicine ayahuasca found me. That was April of 2019. And I never looked back. I moved from Silicon Valley to the beach of Santa Cruz. I started to get out of the business I was in. I got into facilitating, leading men's groups, teaching yoga, facilitating breath work, doing keynote speeches on mental health in the workplace on stage. And here I am several years later, just released my 6th book as of last month, May 2024, called Overcome the Overwhelm, with the 6-step breath process to access inner peace. So high level recap, all that: serial entrepreneur turned spiritual seeker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that, man. And overcome the overwhelm. It's something I think a lot of our listeners could resonate with because we talked about setting high goals for ourselves on this podcast. We've talked about achieving a lot in life, and clearly having some of those achievements that you've had early in life shows that not only are you preaching this, you've lived this. And the unfortunate truth is, for so many of us who chase that ambition, it's like Icarus flying too close to the sun
Mm.
and melting our wings. So I'm curious as to how early achievement in your life led to the necessity for the 6-step process that you developed in this book, when it comes to embracing overwhelm in our lives, that some of the guys listening or watching might be feeling themselves.
For sure. Yeah. A book I wrote in 2022 is called Soul Life Balance. And that's a reframe of work life balance where we realize like the archetypal energies of yin and yang or yang. And that yang or yang energy is outward expression, how we live through our lives, experiencing the world with the five senses, where the yin energy is the inner world of our thoughts and feelings. So basically, with this reframe of work life balance to soul life balance, we're prioritizing our inner world first and foremost while realizing work is a part of life. And that's something that I've been passionate about since 2019, wrote the book in 2022. And then last year in 2023, around the time you and I connected, my entire life imploded. I felt like pretty good at the time in terms of practicing what I was preaching with soul life balance. Like I was doing a really good job, and it was kind of just like maintenance. Everything was opening up for my partner and I. We were having a lot of expansion. And then it almost felt like the universe just smacked me upside the head around March of 2023. And it was a very interesting time. It was auspicious, we could say. You know, I started seeing a
Mm.
lot of people were just having their lives turned upside down in different ways. And I've never been huge on astrology, but I like, you know, keep an eye out on it. And turns out like there are some major astrological events. So not everyone, but a lot of people experience like heavy upheaval in 2023. And mostly like if you were out of alignment in anywhere, like if you didn't experience that, you're probably semi in alignment. And a core philosophy that's like so cliche to say, but it's so true, is everything is happening for you and not to you. So when my world got shook last year, it became the most challenging time in my life. And what's really fascinating as I step back and reflect on that is in a lot of ways, last year I felt more alive and it was easier to lean in to do the work because my life was just crumbling in front of me. And I was at a place of like ultimate surrender where it was like I could either be in resistance to it and I would be in more pain, or I could be like,
Mhm.
hey, this is what's going on. I'm here for it. Let's go. And a lot of shadow work, right? But this year, like having alchemized a lot of that, it doesn't necessarily feel like life has totally opened up for me. Like I mentioned to you, May was a big month. I delivered my first TED talk. I published my book, delivered a big keynote, went to Costa Rica for a men's retreat. Like any one of those things at just once in the year would have been big, but they all
Yeah.
came in May, my birth month. Anyways, though, point being, like in a lot of ways, I just feel like I'm kind of floating right now, and I'm not sure where I'm landing or what's next. But I do know that during these challenging times that we're just feeling debilitated and maybe in the dark night of the soul, numb, depressed, any of these things, like it's also a beautiful time because we're able to feel so much and we're able to get so many insights. So that's when I developed this acronym breath, that is the framework I'm teaching in Overcome the Overwhelm. It's basically a book that's not about what happened, but how I handled it. Because it's not important what happened. What's important is having the tools and frameworks so that you can handle these challenging times.
Yeah. I want to touch on really quick the support where you started the dedication of the book to your parents and the importance of having support through difficult times, overwhelming times, and times where we just might not feel like we're going to be making it to the other side. How important was that support for you and how did that manifest itself?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for asking about that. I'm actually sitting in a room where I remember getting in a heated argument with my parents, like so bad where um, my dad said some things and raised his voice, and then I like jumped out of the chair and then got into his face. And then later on, my mom thought or told me that she thought I was gonna punch him or do something. Like it got heated, man. And I'm not perfect. I don't believe anyone is perfect, and I think the more we understand that and build awareness around it, like we can utilize these tools because we're learning. But all of that said, like, I've really gotten to a place as of late questioning, once again, the path I'm on. I remember choosing to go down the spiritual path and starting my podcast Soul Seeker in 2019. And maybe like I have over 200 episodes now, but back then in the first 10 episodes, I had a title of a show called Questioning the Path You're On. And I think it's very cyclical as we start to do this deeper work that extends beyond personal development and into what I would call spiritual or soul development, to come back to a place of like, is this even the right path? Because just to be transparent with you and your audience, like, yes, I was named to all these different lists and I did have this successful company, and COVID did crush that business and it's gone. It was down 80, 90% year over year since the pandemic. This year, it's down essentially 100%. And I've been wanting to get out of that business, and I'm like, okay. But financially, like, I'm in rebuilding with keynote speaking and my breath work and all of this. And I sit here and I'm like, what am I even doing this for? I've been in content creation for 7 years. My audience isn't growing. I'm stuck. It things, and when I do hear from people, it's like raving reviews. Like, I just did the first breathwork journey that I led in a few months just 2 days ago. And the next day I got two unsolicited amazing testimonials. Then I got a couple more people that said they watched my TED talk and it was amazing. And then today I saw on LinkedIn someone tagged me about the book, how it helped. And I go straight to like, no, 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 I can't receive that. I can't receive that. Like, my mind goes straight to not being able to receive that because I don't have as large an audience as I would like, or I'm not making as much money as I have. And my parents have just been so supportive, and not in a way of like, oh, you're our son and we support you. Like, I can actually feel their energy. And there's a lot of things that are kind of personal that I just don't, I'm not going to share publicly, but like, they have been there to change the way they've looked at this situation to be supportive. And I just wanted to show, extend that gratitude, because whether it's good friends, it's family, anyone at all, like, we need to find our support system, and not so much that we lean and rely on them, but so that we do build our team.
Yeah, and that support system is sometimes the one that sees our progress before we do, because we could be our own worst critic, our biggest critics, and we're looking at what we don't have, or I like to say, we see what we're lacking, they see what we're packing, and that is the reminder that we need sometimes to help us get to that next level. um 72 ounces to freedom. I want to talk about coping mechanisms, man, and how for me, when I think of my most overwhelming times and darkest times, it was fast food and just malnutritious meals that weren't great for you, but it's just kind of that I guess the grease, the ease of the grease that help you find peace. But 72 ounces of freedom. Talk about that chapter. Talk about the coping mechanisms that we find in the thick of overwhelm, man.
Yeah, I had to do some math to figure out how many ounces it was, but Ted's referring to a story I shared in the book where in 2017 or 2018, I was being met with some severe challenges in my business. And I jokingly refer to that time as doing what all great entrepreneurs would do. And I ordered a large pizza and a six-pack of beer. And as I was writing about this story, for whatever reason, the Sublime song 40 Ounces to Freedom came to mind. And I was like, how many ounces are in a six pack? And did the math and was like, oh, 72 ounces. Oh, okay, cool. So I just jokingly named the chapter 72 Ounces of Freedom. But yeah, I remember drinking those beers. Actually, I don't remember it too well because I can't tell you what kind of beer it was, nor can I tell you what kind of pizza it was or where I got it from. It's almost like a lifetime ago, pre ayahuasca. But yeah, coping mechanisms, and going into the deeper layers of the work that I've been doing the past year, I would say that I have been having a very, very, very challenging time with emotional and binge eating, kind of to your point. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I already know this. Like, I'm a breath work practitioner. Like, come back to my breath, breathe. I don't need to go straight to food. But it's still something that I'm really working through. And one story that I share a lot is my pistachio story. And just real quick, basically, like I am always eating pistachios. I buy the big bag, not like the small bag, and it's with the shells. So I'll kind of like subconsciously walk over to the cupboard and then get the big bag of pistachios. Then I have a really nice like trash can that's in like a shelf. So I'm hovering over this trash can that and cracking shells. And after a few minutes of just cracking shells and getting lost to the rhythm of like crack, toss, toss, right? I'll think to myself, what am I doing? What am I avoiding from feeling? And whatever our coping mechanisms are, it can look food, it could be scrolling social media, whatever the thing is. When you get to that place of what am I doing? The next question is, what am I avoiding feeling? And that's the opportunity to go from reacting to responding. And that's when we can start these 6 steps, which are simply summarized in 3 simple themes: breathe, feel, and think intentionally.
Walk us through, because really the next step was going to be walking us through what it looks like to identify our overwhelm. For anyone
Mhm.
listening, anybody watching, um, everybody has perhaps a different threshold, a different sensitivity to when they'll feel overwhelmed, right? Different people could withstand different pressures. What does it look like when we start experiencing overwhelm in our lives? How long could we ignore it before that dragon becomes too big to ignore?
Oh, for sure, right? Overwhelm is a signal, right? So, in a lot of ways, when we say, "Oh, I'm feeling overwhelmed," or someone is overwhelmed, like we're keeping it pretty surface level, and we're not really wanting to feel. I recently gave a presentation, a pro bono presentation, to about 6 business professionals, and the title of the presentation is called "Overcoming Overwhelm." It goes along with the book "Overcome the Overwhelm." By the end of it, this woman asked, and she said it like this. She goes, "You talked a lot about feelings, but the thing is, feelings don't have an IQ. What do you have to say about that?" And that was her attitude and her question. And I was just like, I had to do everything in my power, just like come back to my own breath and not get triggered and like, speak to her with the respect, even though respect wasn't even being shown to me. And obviously, there's something called emotional intelligence. So, feelings and IQ, there you go. And you can feel the energy behind someone saying something like that, that it's a feeling, right? So, like, my point here is many of us, for whatever reason, but especially like trying to keep it all together as professionals in Western society, are feeling overwhelmed and we're disconnected from our thoughts and our feelings. So we just leave it at that. Oh, I'm feeling stressed. Oh, I'm feeling anxiety. Oh, I'm feeling overwhelmed. But the thing is, we got to understand that that's a signal. And if we ignore that signal, to your point, the dragon, well, we get slapped upside the head to so that gets our attention. So the first thing to know about overwhelm as it relates to being a signal is, am I experiencing internal overwhelm or external overwhelm? Because external overwhelm would be like obligations, responsibilities, a to-do list, and that can be very practical. Be like, okay, well, first things first, like go through the 6 steps and breathe and all that. Then, okay, habits to integrate. That's the H in the breath process. Like, what new habits and behaviors? Well, let me attack this to do list. Let me see where I can ask for help or outsource this, or what can I take off my list? What should I do first? Like, very practical, right? Whereas that internal overwhelm, for a lot of us, when we get past like these feelings that are underneath the overwhelm, what lies even below that could be unworthiness, it could be existential angst, it could be something so much bigger and really reveal a big story. And at that point, that is the deep, 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 deep work. Because the truth is, any external overwhelm is just a distraction. We can always, especially if you're listening to Ted's podcast, like you're someone into personal development, you can figure this out and you can work with Ted to figure out like how to attack that external overwhelm. But the internal overwhelm is even deeper than that. And that's the challenging part. And these 6 steps, real quick, the first one is the B in breath is breathe to slow down. Whatever that looks like for you, I get into a little bit more, some practical things, but just allow yourself to slow down. The R is relax to feel. As you're breathing, allow yourself to feel these different energies. The E is energy to reveal. And this is getting curious. What is this energy revealing to me? What's the story here? What's the lesson? The A in the breath is accept to surrender, because oftentimes when this story is starting to get revealed, and this is like that deeper level of worthiness, unworthiness, or existential angst, we're like, no, 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 I don't have time for this right now. Right. So that's why we have
Mhm.
to accept it. And at that point, we earn the right to invoke the power of positive thinking. And I say we earn the right because there's this movement of toxic positivity that's like, never entertain a negative thought or emotion, always feel happy. And what you're doing is you're lying to yourself. And that's when dis-ease happens within the body. So we need to allow ourselves to feel these energies so that they can move through us, because science teaches us that our bodies has a 90-second physiological response when we experience an emotion. Emotions are energy in motion, so let them be in motion. The T in the
Mhm.
breath process is transform into empowering beliefs, and H is habits to integrate. As a result of going through these 6 steps in just a few minutes, what changes am I going to take in my life? So that's the 6 step breath process summarized.
If iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. But if you're a man and you're alone or listening to this, then who sharpens you? What's going on, guys? Ted Phaeton here, host of the Modern Man podcast, also founder of the Noble Knights Mastermind Group. And I'm just out here encouraging you to find your circle. Maybe you're on a personal growth journey and nobody around you understands the new mentality that you're possessing. That's okay. You can find an online community that will pour into you, will navigate your goals and navigate your obstacles, share their experiences, resources, and more. Join the Noble Knights Mastermind Group and try us out for free to tap into a community of men helping each other scale up and reach their goals.
Check out themodernmanpodcast.com. That's amazing. What do you expect and what do you hope people get from that 6 step program, from when it comes to recognizing their overwhelm, implementing this framework, adopting this framework? What are the outcomes on the opposite side you hope the audience and anyone who goes through this process will experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Overwhelm, the secret is there's nothing to overcome. It's the energy of the fixing that gets us stuck of, oh, I have to overcome this thing. Really, more than anything, it's about acceptance. And as we accept, those stories come through and then we can take action from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's amazing is I've been living in I describe it as peace, and I mentioned peace in the home and peace in my everyday life. And when I talk about being when people ask if I'm busy or productive, and I always say productive, and the reality is because like just the other day, my wife was like, "Oh, there's this thing coming up." I was like, "Do you need me to blow out my day? Do you need me to reschedule anything?" She's like, "Oh no, don't worry about it." I'm like, "Are you sure?" She's like, "Well, if you had to, are you able to?" And the reality is yes, when it comes to my business and the way I've built my personal life, sure, I have obligations at work that I have to be there when I have to be there. But as long as I plan accordingly, I have the autonomy over my time and I could blow out my day and the output of my business is not interrupted by that. Which is huge, helpful, and very comforting to be in. But having that comfort and having that acceptance of just day in and day out, that has helped me reduce any stress that comes from tech issues. If let's say, Sam, you're like, "Oh, I can't make it today, can I reschedule?" I used to have that overwhelming feeling when I didn't have any podcast episodes in the hopper, and then the guest would cancel on me, and then I don't have a guest for next week's episode, and then I'm in panic. But by preparing and setting myself up with a process, I'm able to have more ease, comfort, and acceptance in my day in and day out. Second to last question is what what have you seen in terms of the fruits on in your life from this process, from the release of this book and everything that you've been doing so far? Yeah, I know you mentioned the month of May.
Yeah.
What have been the fruits you've been enjoying from implementing the practices in this book?
Yeah, man. I love this question. And I almost said this earlier when you're like, is there anything alive in you? Afterwards, I was like, oh, I could have said that. Well, so in my TED talk that I recently gave, the through line was this story of when I was chasing success and like what helped me to be successful was on a subconscious level. I was saying to myself, when I achieve ABC, I will feel XYZ. Meaning, I didn't understand I was saying that, but like I was chasing $1 million business, which I built. I was chasing being named to Silicon Valley's 40 under 40 list. And I was so much in my masculine that I was able to achieve those things. Yet I didn't realize that after I achieved them, that I would feel so empty within. And the reason in hindsight was because I was like a hamster on a wheel chasing that dopamine hit, right? And being like, oh, when I'm named to Silicon Valley's 40 under 40 list, well, then I'll feel worthy. When I build this successful company, well, then I'll be happy. Yet none of this was ever true. And that's what kind of led me to this spiritual awakening unfolding. So as I started to approach the TED Talk, I noticed that there was a big energy in me where I practiced that TED Talk at least 40 times. That really taught me to be a true professional as it relates to speaking. And I do believe that shows in the final video. But as I continue to run through the TED Talk, like in practicing, when I would get to the point in the talk of saying, when sharing what I just shared with y'all, like being when I achieve ABC, I will feel XYZ. After 3 days of preparing, and I know 3 days doesn't seem like a long time, but I literally in those first 3 days was sitting there just memorizing the speech and practicing it like hours and hours a day, like it was my full-time job. And I was like, there's something off. There's something off. And by the end of that third day, I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it again. Because on a subconscious level, I was saying to myself, I was putting so much pressure on myself. Like, when I achieve the TED Talk and have this, maybe this will be the thing that gets me to go viral. And now all of a sudden I up level and have like way more followers and blah, 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 and make a bigger impact. So I was able to catch myself on that and really be present in the process and practice what the yogis would call sadhana, which means to be in pursuit of, which really helped me more uh, to be a more successful speaker and professional. And what ironically has unfolded, or not so much, since releasing the book and the TED Talk, is like it's the aftermath of when I achieve ABC, I will feel XYZ, because it's like, well, the TED Talk's been out for 2 weeks and so far there's only 300 views. Yeah, everyone that's watched it, that's reached out to me, whether I know them or not, that has reached out is like, oh my God, this is so impactful, blah, blah, blah. I have a call with someone who might turn into a really prosperous business situation, right? And the book, same thing. It became a bestseller. There, to me, I look at that and I'm like, well, it wasn't a number one bestseller like my last two, and it only has 13 reviews. So it's really a deeper layer of looking at my expectations and being like, okay, I am practicing what I'm preaching, but there's still several things where I'm not fully learning the lesson, and that is my block. And the sooner I can get to accepting this, then I know I can get past that block. So I have the awareness around it, yet I'm still stuck. So it's an interesting place to be, because, like, on a certain level, I should be proud, and I am proud of these things. And I should also release those expectations, but they're also very alive emotions in me. And last thing I'll say about this is, one thing that's been coming in for me that I've been saying to myself and I hear from other people is like, yeah, but just think about like those people you are impacting or that one person in the audience. And I'm like, yes, but that advice right now is keeping me playing small because yes, I am always focused on that one person. But if I say, "Oh, it's okay that it only has 300 views or this or that," because the people you are impacting, now I am giving myself an out, and I'm spiritually bypassing in a sense, being like, "Yeah, but I'm helping the people it is reaching." It's like, no, no, no. I've been in the feminine energy these past 5 years of learning what it's like to be in flow and with my feelings and be in my inner world. But now this is why I talk about soul life balance. It's a balance between the feminine and the masculine. Right now, it's very much a season for me to be in that masculine energy where it's like, yes, and that's all true. And also, so that's where I'm at.
Yeah. No, man, appreciate brother. And Sam, I just gotta say, to be candid, I've loved um how transparent and honest you've been. That's why you're a two-time modern man guest. First time and this time, you've always just been a window into where you are, what you're doing, and where you're at. And I think we would we would all benefit if more entrepreneurs were like you in their journey and in their process. And I could tell from the first time we linked up, which was after the book, The Soul Life Balance, and then after this book, Overcoming the Overwhelm, it's definitely a reflection of to where you've been in life and sharing the insights of what you've had. So thank you for that transparency and showing up as you are, brother, because that's what bridges the gap for so many people, so many listeners going through the same thing. So I just want to make sure that they have the opportunity to find the book, get the book, connect with you if needed. So, what are the best ways for them to do so?
Yeah, absolutely. The book is called Overcome the Overwhelm. You can find it on Amazon. Just search Overcome the Overwhelm or go on my website, samkabert.com, KAB as in boy, samkabert.com. That's also my handle on social media. And then, remember, dude, where's my car? And then, you remember that? No, and
Oh
then,
yeah,
no, and then.
no, and then
I'm like, what else did I want to say? I have a breath club too. If anyone's interested, it's a low cost. It's kind of similar to what Ted's got going on with Noble Knights, but it's co-ed and around the breath. Reach out to me about that. And thank you, Ted. Anything that you bring out in me, it's because of the space you're holding and the questions you ask. So I receive all of that. And I also say, thank you for being a shining light yourself as well, brother. And it's always great to connect with you.
appreciate it, man. No, I received that as well, and just try to follow examples like yourself out there. So love having you on the platform. I'll have your links in the show notes as well, and I want to make sure to ask this last question, which is usually the heaviest. So if you need a second to answer it, I get it. But what is something you've seen or something that's happened to you that shapes the way you view the world as a man?
Mm. Yeah. So cliffhanger. After February 27th or so, 2023 was the moment that my life imploded. And that was an argument that I got into that my partner started with me, and I didn't respond in the best way. I expressed how I was feeling and I said how I was feeling, and I thought I was doing the right thing in the moment by expressing how I was feeling. Yet I said how I was feeling in a way of what I wanted to do other than how it felt. And how it felt was that she was putting a dagger into my heart and twisting the blade. And had I said that, I think that would have been a much more fruitful thing. And like I said, it's a process, right? Because I can remember years ago being in arguments with partners and like both of us yelling. In this case, I was holding back tears, saying how I felt, and in that moment, what I said is, I feel like punching you in the face as I was holding back tears, which I thought was a fair thing to say because I was expressing how I was feeling and holding back tears and I was dysregulated. Yet now what I know is if I said, it feels like a dagger's going in my heart and the blade's getting twisted, that would have been received very differently. And because of those few words that I said, that set the wheels in motion to let the next series of events unfold that would just ended up being a massive catastrophe. So, to answer that question, it's deeper layers of understanding how we feel and how we're communicating how it feels within us.
Man, something we should all go through a master class on. And I literally have the feelings wheel saved on my phone in times where I just can't express where I'm at, to help guide me through that, because deeper layers of understanding, most of us as men are emotionally illiterate, so we we could definitely use a little help in that regard. So I appreciate you sharing that, man. Thank you, because definitely a lesson we could all learn from. So thank you for that, man.
You got it. Yeah, I have the emotion wheel on my fridge.
Yeah, hey, you need it. You
Yeah,
need it. It's a
man.
good
I
reference.
dig it.
But Sam, I as always appreciate you being on. Thank you so much, brother. I'm gonna be recapping some of the gems and some of the insights you left along the way, because I know a lot of guys are either driving, they're working out, or doing something else while driving. But the yin and the yang, and understanding the inner and the outer priorities of this world, and do we prioritize our inner selves or outer selves more, and understanding the necessity to pay attention to that inner self. Everything is happening for you, not to you. Understanding if you're living life in alignment, and if you're not living life in alignment, how is the world helping you, even though it might seem and feel as though things are falling apart? A beautiful time. We might be looking around at rock bottom. We might be going through our dark times, our storm, but not recognizing the beauty of that situation could be a downfall. We need to understand the beauty that can come in the new life that can come about. And what am I avoiding feeling? If you find yourself in that loop of activity, that habit, that routine, that procrastination, or that coping mechanism that you go to, what is it that you're avoiding feeling? And many are disconnected to the feelings of overwhelm and stress. We just chalk it up as, oh, I'm just stressed, or I'm just feeling stressed. And if the stress is coming from external to-do lists and external obligations, there's a logistical and practical way to approach that. However, if some of those feelings of overwhelm are more internal, approaching that 6-step process can help. The breathe to slow down, relax to feel, energy to reveal, accept to surrender, transform into empowering beliefs, and tapping into those habits and routines. Get yourself the book Overcome the Overwhelm by Sam Kabert to get more insights. Trust me, Sam goes in depth in so much more than just the breath. I remember you were talking about shadow self in there, consciousness in there, and these are all the practical tools and the understandings that you would need in order to be successful in the process. So definitely check out the book. Follow Sam to check that out as well. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave us a rating to let us know how we're doing. This is the only way we improve. And of course, guys, share this with somebody else you know got value, can get value from it as well. And as we always say at the end of this episode, guys, everybody wants the sunshine, but they don't want the rain. But you can't get the pleasure without first the pain. Let's go.